But they had a system that stopped being sold about 15 years ago. This legacy system, it was about 25 years old. And you put that into a perspective of other technology, and you wouldn't dream of keeping any other piece of technology for 25 years. What could you be using that space for? You could be using that space for more revenue generating activities. Your typical team member entering a hospitality space is going to be of that younger generation, where they use cutting edge technology every minute of every day. It's in their pocket.
Yeah. It's an expectation.
It's an expectation.
You've got people that are my grandparents' age that will want to talk to somebody face to face. My parents' age that will probably want to ring somebody. People that are my age that probably want to send you an email and you can get back to me when you want. And then the generation slightly below me that want to WhatsApp you and they want instant responses. But all those little headaches have gone away. There's nothing stopping this happening now. Yeah. There's not that much resistance left to stop this change happening.
Hello everyone, we're here today from the VorBoss studios in London, kindly hosting us for the fantastic webinar talking about the PSTN switch off that is getting closer and closer and what it means for every hotel in the UK for 2026. I'm Alessandra from Focus on Hospitality and I'm joined today by Ross. Ross, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hi there, I'm Ross Clinch. I am Head of Proposition at Focus Group within the UC and CX pillar.
And then we also have in the room Paul Fletcher.
Yeah, hi there, I'm Paul Fletcher. I'm a technical account manager at Evolve IP and we're one of the technology partners for Focused on Hospitality from a voice and AI perspective.
Well, thank you both for being here today and shedding some light on what is the PSTN switch off. So, Ross, tell us briefly what it is, what it means for hoteliers that are listening.
Absolutely. So for those of us in telecoms, it feels like we've been talking about the PSTN switch off for coming on a decade now. I think the initial announcement that this was the Open Reach plan came out in late 2016, early 2017. So it's been an ongoing process for some time. And we're in the kind of the final leg of that journey. So Open Reach obviously had a lot of legacy infrastructure in the ground in terms of kind of good old traditional copper phone lines. And that has been superseded by newer technologies, more reliable, faster technologies. So the decision has been made to switch off that old voice-enabled copper infrastructure in favour of newer technologies. Now this has kind of been a phased approach, and they're switching off BT exchanges kind of bit by bit, but the end date for this is the end of this year. It's the beginning of 2027. So the end is nigh, and there is still a lot of infrastructure out there. There's a lot of infrastructure in terms of kind of good old-fashioned analog landlines, as you would have maybe at home. But actually, businesses have a lot of this infrastructure still in place. And really, it's imperative that that is addressed prior to the switch-off, because it's coming, and it's coming quickly. So there's not much time to get things done.
So why is this switch-off becoming such a major talking point for hospitality?
So hospitality is kind of where the last great stand of legacy technology sits, I would say. And obviously we have Focus on Hospitality as our kind of go-to-market approach in hospitality, but we service as Focus Group a lot of other industries out there, pretty much everything you could think of. Hospitality like to get the most from their investments. So when we're looking at kind of telecoms and voice solutions within hospitality, there are a lot of old legacy, what we call PBXs or phone systems still in situ. A lot of those rely on this legacy copper infrastructure for use. But kind of one step away from voice and looking at kind of the wider infrastructure, there's other things that aren't quite so instantly recognizable. Lift lines being one of the key ones. So that these things are serviced by that copper infrastructure, and come January 2027, that copper infrastructure is no longer going to exist. So something needs to be done fairly quickly.
So when we're having conversation with GMs and IT manager, IT directors in the rooms, obviously the telecom element of the hotel is greatly underestimated. We got phones, we got lines. Some also are going as far as taking the phones out of the room. So we stop charging for telephone calls. So why and in what way will this affect them? Why this investment into an upgrade with new technology is so essential?
Yeah, so there are several kind of systems and manufacturers which have been commonplace in hospitality for some years, and I think a lot of that kind of choice has been made by the fact that you need to cater for room phones, and room phones are low usage. They have not been kind of a core revenue generator for quite some time in hospitality, but they've kind of been seen as, well, that's what we've always done. Guests have always expected to have a phone in the room, therefore we should probably carry on that way. And I think because that guest journey is evolving at quite a rapid rate, and the newer technologies on the market are supporting that new approach to the guest journey, it's opening up the opportunity to look at alternative technologies. If we don't need to cater for rooms, then actually the world's our oyster in terms of what technology we could be placing in there. Yeah. There are still nuances within hospitality that we do need to account for, but actually it opens up that options around cloud technologies, other kind of CX technologies, and what that kind of AI layer looks like within those solutions.
I think that's the key point. It's not seeing the phone in the room as revenue generating from a call perspective, but what other revenue can be generated by having a phone in a room, or a device that can interrupt with other technologies throughout the property, because that device can still generate you revenue. How are you servicing your room service, for example, if I can't actually order it?
Very true.
And if those devices in the room are removed, what other technology are we offering to the guest to communicate whilst they are on site about the ancillary revenue that guest can bring upon? Absolutely right. So how do you think hospitality and hoteliers are prepared for this imminent deadline? Because we are 6 months away, basically.
We are 6 months away. I think one of the biggest challenges across the board, but probably especially with hospitality, is understanding what you have. It's that kind of initial audit piece. It's understanding, actually, I know I've got copper infrastructure within my property, and I can see it on my phone bill, but actually I don't know what it's doing. I don't know where it's connected to. And unless you have a really granular knowledge of the kind of internal infrastructure within your property, it's quite a difficult task to find that out. It could be serving a door entry system, it could be serving a lift line, it could be serving a fax machine, or harking back, it could be a franking machine or something similar. So this copper infrastructure is going to be in place. Understanding where it is, what it does, and actually how business critical it is really the challenge.
Yeah, I think a lot of these systems have, as you said at the start, been sweated over a number of years and have just been added to, or in some instances you've got two different platforms in the same property doing different things, because someone has, an IT manager for example, has left, or a general manager has left, the other one's come in and seen a brand on the desk and assumed they've gone and bought the same thing because it's the same brand. It's completely different technologies that aren't talking to each other. And as you say, unless you've got a holistic understanding of what's in your property and what you're using it for, you're dead from the day one, aren't you, really? Because you can't replace something you don't know what it's doing.
Absolutely.
Like you wouldn't go and change a part on your car if you didn't know what it was doing.
Very true.
It's an integral part of your business operation, is talking, it's communication, be that your data service for your email or your voice for communicating with customers. It's vital.
Absolutely. It's an interesting point you make around having separate platforms. One of the kind of key, I think, barriers with this legacy technology is that it's not particularly scalable. I cut my teeth on traditional phone systems back in the day, and they have a limit. They have an extension limit depending on the type of system, the number of cards, or a few various other factors. And for properties looking to expand, maybe they've built on annexes or expanded the property and want to service that with voice technology, but actually their existing technology was at capacity. They didn't have the ability to add more extensions or add more rooms. Without reinvesting in a whole new system, the quick decision and kind of path of least resistance might have been, let's just get a second system in to kind of cater for that part of it. Maybe we'll do rooms on one and kind of back of house on another. And you end up with a kind of a jigsaw puzzle of legacy technologies kind of badly integrated with each other. And that causes more challenges.
So, Paul, you guys at Evolve IP are very strong in hospitality. You support a lot of hospitality businesses. What are some of the characteristics that you see, and how resistant are hotels to evolve the telecoms technology into more modern systems?
I think the biggest thing seems to be time. And I think particularly at the UK, having come and joined some of your in-person sessions, that the economy within the hospitality sector is unpredictable at the moment in terms of when my peak and non-peak periods are going to be. When can I actually have disruption to my hotel? Because, don't get me wrong, you change technology, it's seamless and it's quick and it's easy, but it's still a process you have to go through. There will still be, I need to go into a room to remove a phone to replace it, or we need to take something down in the network for moments, but that affects your customer experience and your customer journey. So I think people finding the right time to do it, or invest the right time at the start to get into a place that they can actually do something. So I think time seems to be one of those pressures that hospitality sector kind of suffer from in this kind of projects, and then monetary as well. It's finding the right system that will deliver you your outcomes at a sensible commercial agreement. I think the problem that you've had with on-premise technology, it was a capex purchase 10, 15 years ago, and actually now on my balance sheet it's really small and the operational costs are quite minimal. But because I've not refreshed that for 10, 15 years, that kind of pain that you had that time ago has been lost and forgotten about, and maybe again, as I say, the members of staff that went through that aren't there. So trying to find a good mix with an OPEX model that allows the cash flow of the business not to be disturbed that much, but drive your business 10 years into the future by updating to just modern day technology, let alone future-proofing yourself going forward.
And what are hoteliers asking you today in terms of functionality for a telecom system compared to 5 years ago, 10 years ago? So obviously the guest journey has evolved drastically with guests bringing their own technology into the building when they check in. So there is functionality to use their own devices. So what are the hoteliers asking you? And are they asking you the right questions?
To your last point, no, they're probably not asking direct questions. But the clear observation for hospitality is you're one of only 3 or 4 probably sectors that talk to probably 4 different generations of people simultaneously. You've got people at my grandparents' age that will want to talk to somebody face to face. My parents' age that will probably want to ring somebody. People that are my age that probably want to send you an email and you can get back to me when you want. And then the generation slightly below me that want to WhatsApp you and they want instant responses, but their way of talking to you is a conscious stream of messages. So they won't give you all the information in one thing. It's this bang, 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 and then you have to then be professional and reply back. So you're potentially looking at bringing in 4 different communication technologies to talk to your customer base. Like there aren't that many industries where you've got such a wide ranging of, could be 90-year-olds coming to stay for one night to visit their grandparents, and those 16, 17, 18-year-olds that are going off away on their first weekend away with their mates. Like the wide range is so drastic, and if you're not providing the correct ways to talk to those sectors, you're just missing out on such a large chunk of the industry.
Absolutely, you are absolutely right. As the hotelier in the room, we always try to give the guest a choice and understand the different hotel personas, as we used to call them, and trying to cater for that means of communication. So you're absolutely right. The choices now have become so many more because for once there are so many different behavior for all the different Gen A are entering the marketplace, and then Gen Z, then all the way up to the baby boomers are still traveling. So there is definitely a different approach. So when we look at the guest journey, what I'm trying to say, voice and telecommunication is still very relevant into hotels, and they're still driving a lot of revenue through. We're talking about there is a huge amount of reservations still being made and received by the hotel over the phone. So let's talk about these legacy PBX machines that sits and take a lot of space still into hotel cupboards and rooms. So what are we seeing, and what's the next for those?
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely are, and it's incredible. We talk about legacy PBX like they're these terrible things, but actually, we've still got customers out there. We spoke to one recently. We're in the process of now migrating them, but they had a system that stopped being sold about 15 years ago. This legacy system, it was about 25 years old, and you put that into a perspective of other technology, and you wouldn't dream of keeping any other piece of technology for 25 years. No laptop, no computer. Like 25 years ago, computers were a completely different thing, right? Whereas a legacy PBX will sit there, and to some extent, it will carry on working until it doesn't. And that's the challenge: is that there is no warning. There is no warning sign that your PBX is about to die. It will just die. And the fact that these systems are so old, and actually probably more importantly, a lot of the vendors of these traditional technologies are no longer in the market. They no longer sell phone systems. They no longer manufacture phone systems. Their kind of back-end third-party support function was made defunct many years ago. So it's the element of risk which is the biggest challenge, I think, within this sector, is that there's somewhat a comfort to the fact that I can walk into my comms room and I can see it and I can touch it, and the little lights blink just like they've blinked for the last 15 years, and it's that kind of, oh yeah, no, I know where my phone system is, it's secure, I can see it, I can touch it. But actually, the risk of retaining that legacy technology is huge. Because if that, as you quite rightly say, Ali, is still a key revenue stream and a key enabler of really good guest journeys, then if it fails without warning, your hand is forced into this huge transformation project when it may not have been budgeted, it will not have been planned, and it may be at your busiest time of year. So risk is one element, and then, as you quite rightly said, these things take up a lot of space. Like if you're in a large property, if you're on a 400-500 bed property or more, we're talking about a room. Your phone system is taking up a room in that property. And I'm sure you've seen them, Paul, having worked with customers direct and been in comms rooms in these types of properties. What could you be using that space for? You could be using that space for more revenue generating activities. You could be using that space, which is typically kind of back of house, for space for your team members to spend time together or to relax or to kind of take a break. So not only is there the massive element of risk within these technologies, but actually once you remove that hardware, and it's vast amounts of hardware, you then have all this space that you can then kind of play with.
Let's move slightly. We spoke about the guest journey. Ross, you mentioned spaces from the teams. So that's become well-being and providing a space to take breaks, etc., has become a huge topic, especially when a hotel is being built now or refurbished. Designers are coming in, and the team journey has become just as important now in terms of the spaces we allocated for them. But let's talk about how they communicate, how these teams communicate without the proper modern technology back of house to run the business, and how perhaps a legacy technology beyond the PSTN switch off affects the way they operate. Absolutely. Recruitment is a challenge, I would say, in all industries at the moment. But given the pressures on hospitality, with national living wage increases, and Brexit did this industry no favours whatsoever in terms of the amount of talent they lost in a very short space of time. Your typical team member entering a hospitality space is going to be of that younger generation, where they use cutting edge technology every minute of every day. It's in their pocket. It's an expectation. I get this in my social time. I'm now working. The bare minimum tools I use day to day should be what I get, and they've had that through their schooling as well. I go back, and people call me a dinosaur. I'm still in my 30s, but I go back and I remember when I was at primary school, putting the first computers into a classroom, and then we had an IT suite that was 5 in a room.
now kids are doing homework on iPads and laptops that are provided by schools. Like, they grow up through this technology. They've had it since the age of, well, probably preschool, but they have it from 5 to 18 when they leave. And these people are used to quick communications. So don't get me wrong, Amazon have done wonders for me getting my barbecue tomorrow morning, but they've done no good for the customer expectation that we all now have to live up to. And that is in communications or in goods. Because now I can send you a Teams message and I'm getting impatient if you've not replied to me in 5 minutes because I've sent you an instant message. I've not sent you an email which then has to go off, go through a server, be scanned, be then put into your inbox that I know is then sat at the bottom of an inbox of all your other emails. I've sent you a communication direct to you that I well know you are seeing on at least 2 devices. So why has there not been an immediate response? And as you say, that younger generation are expecting that because we've gone through that process of everything is immediate. I can order something and I get it immediately. I can ask a question. I should be able to get that information back immediately.
So
the challenge. Oh, sorry, Ali.
Go ahead.
The challenge with not implementing those types of technologies within your organisation is that those team members are still going to find the path of least resistance to communicate. Be that a back office WhatsApp chat or personal email, and that then opens up the whole discussion around security, cybersecurity, security of your guest data, your internal data. Well, if I don't have Teams or if I'm not using a modern UC or collaboration platform, I'm going to find another way to do it because I've got a device, I've got access to the files. I'll tell you what, let me just ping it to you on WhatsApp. And then you open up a whole nother level of risk around GDPR compliance that is easily avoidable, provided you give those team members the right tools to use.
And do you think that hotels are now viewing communication as part of the guest and team experience, or as hotelier we have way to go to modernize ourselves into our approach to thinking? Yeah,
I think a blend. I think you've got traditional brands that have kind of stick to that. This is what we've always done, and we're still successful at what we do, and we have stood by that for decades more than, and we know what we do. And they're probably slightly more resistive to change those traditional companies. But you see a lot of young upstart hoteliers that come into the marketplace and they really disrupt with their hospitality offering, but also then how they are utilising technology. So they are integrating their 7 rooms bookings to their WhatsApp conversations. So I can literally send you a WhatsApp to book my table of 4 in your restaurant for 7 p.m. by just sending you a WhatsApp, and it's done. It's integrated. But yeah, so I say it's blended. I think there are, and I think that's going to help. And a newer generation of IT manager again that have come through with that technology and trust it and know that it works. I had a call with it's a slightly different sector, but an IT manager who'd been an IT manager for 45 years, really hesitant to take in Teams voice. It's just because he didn't understand it, and it's not like his team are telling them, I don't want a piece of plastic on my desk anymore. I want to be free. I want to, some hotels that have got big grounds. How are you contacting your grounds people? Again, are you taking it off platform? Are you using personal devices? What happens if that person leaves? You're not that. They've got all of that information that you've shared, telephone numbers, client telephone numbers, information, maybe their concierges talking to clients, and they go and work for your competition. They've then got, Mr. Clinch, you recently stayed at the X. I've now moved to the Y. We've got your favourite bottle of champagne in. Why don't you pop in and let's have a conversation? Gone. That spend is now shifted. But those people that trust it and have grown up with it and used it for a number of years are embedding it at the very core from the ground up. And that could be starting off in the back office with Teams as a communication, or WebEx, or whatever they want to choose, and then bringing it slowly to the forefront and starting to integrate and open up a live chat field on my website so someone can actually talk to reservations during work hours still. We're not gone to that horrible 2-letter word yet that I'm sure is going to crop up in one of your questions, but it's still a human answering it, and it's still being done in work hours. But again, it's a barrier down, and it's a new technology, it's a new way to communicate. I think you can't go from A to Z instantly, and I think you do need a roadmap of drip feeding these in, because you will have staff that are resistive to change or don't like it or doesn't necessarily fit your brand image. You may be that more of a traditional style, but you you can't stay on ISDN. When you can't stay on the PSTN network, it's going. You've got 6 months. You need a roadmap of what you're going. And is it going to get extended again for another 6 years? No, it's not. Like the stuff that was getting in the way has been resolved now. So lift lines was the big elephant in the room. My lift stops working, but my phone carries on because I'm drawing power from the PSTN network. Okay, well, people have now got around that with enhanced cellular devices, small little batteries that sit on top of the lift, independent from the power supply to the hotel. So all those little headaches have gone away. There's nothing stopping this happening now.
Yeah.
There's not that much resistance left to stop this change happening. So yeah, roadmap.
Well, the change is happening. Will be here.
Yeah.
What happens on the day to those that will continue to do nothing?
You have some very evident and very immediate challenges, whereby your phone lines stop working, your lift stop working, your fax machine stop working, potentially that door entry phone that may be on a standalone PSTN stops working.
And how soon at that point would they be able to upgrade, and how time will lapse to roll out an emerging product at that point in time?
I'm sorry, Ross, but I think you've missed the biggest thing that you risk. You risk your telephone number.
You do. Yes, you absolutely do.
The way people have got hold of you for 50 years is gone because the lines have been cut. Well, it's going to take you a long time to even know if you can actually get that number back into a digital system if you go past the expiry date. We don't know. We haven't been communicated. What happens to those numbers? Do they just get reallocated into the commercial pool? Do they get held for 2 months? That I can't give you an honest answer for, but that's a huge risk.
So Paul, you and I some months ago did an article together about when if the phones don't work, what's the revenue? What happens to the revenue in those hours or in those minutes when the phones aren't working? So when we put some pen to paper and put some numbers for a standard £100 a night, taking 5 reservations immediately is £500 lost. And into these generations of I want to book the room, I want to book it now, I'm done thinking about it, here's my time, those guests will go perhaps to your competition. So there is absolutely a cost of doing nothing despite the compliance element. So from a compliance perspective, your lifts, your security, and then your revenue generation. So
and as you say, it's not going to be a quick fix if you go past that, because you can guarantee you're not going to be the only person that's done it, and your chosen vendor may already be dealing with 4 other hotels that they need to get online, and you leave yourself very exposed to expedition costs, or we can do this. And that's not necessarily saying a vendor's being greedy. BT do charge.
Openreach are actively increasing the costs of these legacy ISDN and PSTN services over the next 12 months. So there are quarterly Openreach price increases that we have to pass on over the next 12 months, and it's not something that we as a reseller want to do. So the message to our customer pool at the moment is, look, engage with us. We're sending out collateral and notifications like we've never done before, because we want to be able to have those conversations and move those few remaining customers onto more modern technologies. It's better for them, and it's certainly better for us.
And you're in a position to support it as well.
Absolutely.
Going back to your point that you made earlier about the beast as a tin in a cupboard, that the company that may have sold you that may not exist, or they've moved on to new technologies. But think of the engineer that installed that. Are they likely to retain the information of a system they installed 25 years ago, because even those bits of technology changed from PBXA to PBXB to PBXC now onto digital, or B, are they even still working?
Very true.
And new engineers are not being taught how to maintain a PBX because this old technology. It's how can I support your whole network, and how do I support your your layer switches and your APs and your routers and your gateways. They're not being taught how to spin a screwdriver and move that card into there to enable their voicemail, etc.
What was commonplace 20 years ago is now a niche skill set.
Yeah.
I've been in those rooms,
the
not knowing what I was looking at a rack with many cables, with someone on the phone telling me exactly which cable to move out and put somewhere else. So those rooms need to disappear. Those skill set. What happens to the man that was on the phone with me telling me what to do?
He's likely retired.
He's retired or
To be honest, given the age of some of the systems that we've got out there, not we have out there, but we've seen out there that we've pulled out and replaced with more modern technologies. As I said, some of these systems haven't been sold for 15, 20 years. So that engineering skill set has either evolved into, excuse the pun, onto new technologies and different solutions, or they just retired and kind of moved on out of the market.
Yeah. And when those pieces of kit fail, who notices first? I bet it's not you as the hoteler. It is the customer contacting you. Your system could be down. Your number has fallen over, whatever that may be. Who is the first person to tell? It isn't you making the outbound leg. I can guarantee it. It'll be the people trying to communicate in to you, and they're the people that are going to spy you've got a problem. And if they can't get hold of you another way, how do you know who you missed? It's
an interesting one, isn't it? Because we kind of tread very carefully as salespeople, and I sold direct for 10, 15 years. We tread really carefully to not scaremonger, and a lot of the conversation that we're having now, it sounds like scaremongering.
Yeah.
But in this instance, it's not. This is happening. Yeah. There is a deadline. The risk is very, very real. And if we don't engage with our customers, if our customers don't engage with us, there are going to be challenges along the road.
Yeah. I think as an industry, we did quite a lot of work educating the PSTN switch off in the early 2020s, and the extension probably hasn't helped it. Because when was it? The last deadline was 2023, 24? Yeah, end of 24, early 25, wasn't it? And then we've pushed it back another 2 years for like the third time. Yep. So we've spent a long time doing education and having these kind of conversations. And I think people have almost gone blind to it because it's been there for so long. And as you say, this generally isn't scaremongering now. It's just trying to repurpose the education that we've already done and bring it back to the surface.
But I think for hospitality, actually, you know what? It's probably really, really well timed. Because the guest journey has evolved so much over the past 5 years. Yep. The demographic of guests has changed. We were talking about the guest journey earlier, and when we say the guest journey, we say it in a singular, but actually looking at the various guest profiles that we have coming into these properties, there may be lone travellers, there may be families, there may be people travelling for leisure, there may be people travelling for business. They all have a different set of requirements that need to be catered for by really a single set of technologies. And it's interesting, we were having conversations at an event on Tuesday, a Next Wave Hospitality event, where we were talking about more hotels removing the phones from rooms. We touched on that. But actually, where appropriate, implementing things like self-check-in terminals. Mm-hmm. And that's not for everyone. The decision to kind of push guests down that route is not one that I think is taken lightly. But giving the guest choice when they walk into the property as to how they engage with the team members within that property is absolutely key. Because then you can cater for more demographics within that single technology stack.
And that's also not just necessarily self-checking one. I think is always a very interesting conversation. I know it's not necessarily voice, but it does feed into everything else that you do. But I am one demographic, but I will travel for two reasons: one for business and one for leisure. If I'm checking in for business, I probably want self-service because I've had a long day of travel or I've had a long day of meetings, and actually, last thing I want to do, forgive me, is talk to another human being. I'd quite like to put my booking reservation in, check in, go to my room, and probably order room service if I'm travelling for business. But if I'm travelling for leisure, I'm more relaxed. It is my time. I want to talk to somebody at reception. I want to know when I can go to the bar. I want to know if there's a pool. I want to know those bits of information.
Absolutely.
And while self-checking is the physical variant of that, bringing it back to our conversation, and I'm going to bring it up now, AI and how CX and AI can work together, you can mirror that within your phone system platform.
100%.
You can have those FAQs available to be answered by a bot or an agent or an AI assistant, whatever you want to call them, virtual agent.
Yeah. Wow, I thought we were going to make it an entire webinar today without mentioning.
We've done really well.
You can't avoid it, but you can have those physical experiences and you can make them virtual and you can put them into your voice world. And again, it's not driving your customers down the avenue of, if you phone us, you talk to a virtual assistant. You can talk to a virtual assistant, or you can talk to the concierge, the receptionist, the human being, and that is the important thing. And as us as an industry have to be very careful in our messaging of AI doesn't replace, it assists, it is alongside, it is a help. And that is the key messaging, particularly in hospitality. As you were talking about the self check-in journey, that is exactly the same as my self-conversation journey. Whenever I try and phone you, do I want to know if I can park at your hotel? Give me that option, as I can ask the receptionist and maybe book a space, or I could just ask a virtual assistant to, have you got a car park? Yes, no.
Absolutely. And I mean, as we've opened that AI can of worms, let's continue. AI is a really interesting thing, and we as a business have created propositions, and we've developed solutions that are kind of front door customer facing. We've just launched an AI receptionist, which is doing really, really well because it has a specific use case, and we are positioning it into verticals and industries where we've done the research and we understand that, the appetite is there to engage with a business in this manner. Hospitality is a slightly different one, and Ali, I know that you've held workshops with industry peers over the last few months, and it was really insightful to understand the level of comfort and the kind of the temperature in the room with regards to guest-facing AI, and it's one that needs to be approached with caution, because hospitality is very much human-led, and it always should be. But as we've said, it's that element of choice. I think where the discussions have always seemed to pivot to when we're talking about AI and hospitality has not necessarily been the guest-facing element, but it's actually like, how can these technologies aid your team members to deliver a more personalised, more streamlined service to your guests? So then everything that we're doing with AI is enhancing that guest journey rather than making it less human.
Yep, completely agree.
Absolutely, and in many conversations that we have had over the past few months with industry leaders and operators and owners is how we look at AI still deliver the human element. And when there is a recruitment shortage and very fewer and fewer people want to enter the hospitality sector to build a career forward, because the legacy systems that are still very well embedded into the sector does not meet their expectation, does not meet what they're used to do and how they're used to live their lives. So is it better to embrace AI, to support these teams, and to be able to have time to deliver the human connection and those moments of magic, like we like to call them, into the sector?
And it's just making sure, you know who you are as a brand. If you are a brand and you are a country estate that has been there for 150 years, 200 years, and you play on the tradition, you cannot have a virtual receptionist in terms of replacing it. Know who you are, but know that technology is still there to assist you somewhere, and that is the key. It's AI isn't about modern versus traditional or old and new. It's for everybody, but it's understanding what it can do for you. And that is where when I go back to where I'm saying people are asking us some questions, but they're not asking us other questions. People aren't inquisitive enough about AI. I don't think it's, yes, I want it, no, I don't want it. And some people are like, I'm told I need it.
It's an interesting point you make there, and I think there's two elements to this. There's a question of silo technology. How 15, 20 years ago, when we bought our legacy PBX and installed it in our hotel, that was a telephone system project. And the whole goal there was to go out to market and purchase a telephone system that would allow us to make calls and receive calls and speak to our guests in their rooms. It was very siloed. As a technology, historically, telephony has been very siloed. Now, that's evolved over the years, and we have some fantastic integrations with PMS systems, and there's some great middleware out there that we work with, and that has always got better. But I think gone are the days now where we look at technology transformation projects like this as siloed projects. Yep. You wouldn't dream of just going and changing a phone system. You'd need to step back and actually look at that entire kind of guest journey to understand what part does voice play in that. Voice is now a channel within an entire guest journey. Yeah. So not only do you need to look at telephony, but you need to understand what other mediums your guests want to communicate with you in.
Yeah.
That's one challenge. So silo technology. The second is, depending on the size and scale of your operation, are you going to go and do that market research yourself? Do you have the skill set internally to go and do that market research yourself? Many independents and kind of smaller chains do not have a CTO or a CISO or that function within the organization to really make those strategic technology decisions. We offer a virtual CTO service for customers in similar situations where actually they really need to understand kind of what's the art of the possible with technology these days. And we've got a fantastic team of consultants that will go in and sit with them and really kind of bring the market to them, show them the art of the possible. Whereas if you are an independent, then I can see why you might want to kind of shy away from projects like this, because they're fairly big and they're very disruptive and they're slightly scary.
Yeah.
So partnering with the right provider in these transformation projects is absolutely key, because trying to do it all yourself can be incredibly daunting.
Yeah, being inquisitive is probably the best sort of characteristic you can have if you're going to go through this kind of adventure.
100%.
Is you ask questions. Nothing is a silly question. Ask the questions, because the more you understand, the more informed choice you're going to make, but then actually the better you'll get, or the bigger reward you will get from your investment, because you will make sure you are getting, everything used to its full potential. You've got a desired outcome. Make your partner map out how you get to your desired outcome. Make sure there is a progression or plan, because the ISDN switch off is the immediate issue, but give it another 5 years, something else will change. And it's making sure you have something that is agile and open and adaptable. Because to your point, and I say this, when I was at school, again, going back down that route, when I did technology stuff, it was called ICT, Information Communication Technology. The C got dropped for a number of years, and we looked at IT as just computers and networks. It needs to come back again, because communication is a key part of your IT stack. Everything is integrated now, or should be, or can be, and you need to view it as a whole. You don't have an IT department and a comms department. It's a whole holistic networking team now that has to go and support something or make something work and work together.
I think hoteliers play a pivotal role in this, in that we can bring the market to a hotelier and kind of show them the art of the possible and the technologies that are out there in the market. But unless they know their guest, they understand the friction points within that guest journey, and they have a clear view on kind of what outcomes they want to deliver to improve that guest journey, to inevitably generate more revenue, get better feedback, which, as you know, Ali, is absolutely pivotal to growth in this industry, then you're starting off on the wrong foot. So understanding your guests, understanding what you want that customer journey to look like and the outcomes that you need this technology to deliver is absolutely key before bringing in the right partner.
You're not expected to know the technology, as in the hotelier. We're not
No,
expecting
that's what we're
you.
here for.
Well, exactly. We're not expecting you to know the technology that you want. What we would love you to know is, as you say, know your customers, or know the target audience you're looking to be able to attract, what you want to deliver. Leave the how to us, and then we can take you on that journey. And like I say, never see it as an A to Z. It's always an A to a B, B to a C. There is always going to be stepping stones, because something will always change. Technology never stands still.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
You look at you look at cars. The engine of a car hasn't changed over 25 years until electricity recently. The PBX from now to 25 years is so different, that it has gone so quickly that you're always going to have to be taken on a journey. So a partnership with the right tech vendor is as crucial now than it ever has been.
Absolutely.
So, Paul, Evolve IP is one of the leading systems in hospitality communication. You guys globally have a lot of hospitality customers, so you've been catering to my sector for many years. What is, if you were to give them 5 takeaways for today's talk, what would be?
I think the first one is, as just mentioned, be inquisitive. Ask the questions. Don't assume you know everything, and don't assume that you know what you want, but be inquisitive. So being aware commercially and your reputation that is potentially at risk with inaction. You said 5, didn't you?
I think you probably mentioned 5. Ross, do you still think that hoteliers are valuing that telecommunication is a big part still of the guest experience and the guest journey?
Absolutely. And I think there are other channels, other mediums, other communication channels with guests which have become more commonplace and are probably equally as important, but voice is still pivotal to human conversation.
So why are we being so stubborn? Why are we being so resistant to upgrade those systems? And we've been very flexible in updating and adopting WhatsApp, or adopting and making a new website, or doing many other things, changing the PMS. Why, if we still think that there is value in telecoms, why are we being so stubborn? And I'm saying we because obviously I'm the
You're taking the role of hotelier.
Yes.
I think there is an element of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And as we alluded to, legacy PBXs last a very long time until they don't. And it's fairly solid technology at the core, but like everything, it has a lifespan.
So obviously, Ross, you and I had to deal with one of our customers, which we're not going to name today, that we have been talking for many, many months about their system and the need for change. Can you tell us a bit more about that without...
We have, yeah. So we've been talking to them for some time, like we've just been discussing, right? We've been articulating the risks of keeping this technology in place, and the fact that this is an old system. There is an element of risk here, and then if it goes, you're somewhat in a difficult position. They didn't heed those warnings to the extent I think that we would have liked them to, and unfortunately the inevitable did happen mid-conversation. And it always, from our standpoint, it's a really difficult one, because nobody likes to say, well, I told you so, but our focus at that point was to go, okay, look, we articulated the risk here. Unfortunately, you didn't heed the warnings. The inevitable has happened, but we are in a position as focus group and focused on hospitality where our portfolio supports us to be really agile with the help of you guys at Evolve IP, that we can spin up a solution quite quickly. So for the most part, although there is absolutely a level of risk that really needs to be understood, and the warnings do need to be heeded, we are agile enough to be able to support customers when they're in those horrible situations where a system has died.
Yes, but obviously, despite the infrastructure that Focus has that can support if something goes down, obviously this particular hotel was receiving calls diverted to the GM mobile for many days. So when you then make those obvious and necessary adjustment, the revenue implication are substantial.
It's huge.
So that would have paid for an upgrade. The revenue loss would have paid for the upgrade, and let's forget about it.
Absolutely. So we talk a lot about return on investment, and when we're talking to customers about new systems and solutions, we really do dwell on the return on investment these new solutions can provide. But as important is, what's the cost of doing nothing?
Yeah, the cost of inaction often outweighs the return on investment.
9 times out of 10 will outweigh the return on investment, especially in such a business critical scenario as voice into a hotel.
Yeah. Going back to your examples, Ali, I think they are things that people are constantly told they need to do. You know, you need to be on WhatsApp, you need a new website, you need to spend money on your Google Analytics. As you said, we're not an industry that goes, you need to change your phone system, you need to do this, you need to do that. I know that's what we're doing here today, but that's because there is a genuine need. There is a deadline looming. It has almost been, as you say, an educational journey, and people are, oh yeah, that sounds great, but I can leave it because it's not broke, why am I fixing it? Whereas, oh yeah, you need to update your website, you need to have this on your website, you need to, and that then means that your Google Analytics will be better, so when I search for hotels in London, you are number 5, not number 105. Those messages are constantly hammered into you, whereas your comms platform probably isn't a continual conversation that someone's having with you.
And I think we touched on earlier that voice used to be a fairly core revenue stream in terms of rebilling of calls, and that's no longer the case, which I think is even more important now, that when we're talking about voice and solution replacements and digital transformation, is that we're not just focusing on voice, because actually the return on investment on just voice is probably not as compelling as it was maybe 10 years ago. I think what we need to be doing now, and what we are doing, is having that wider, broader conversation around guest journey, so that we can build a more compelling return on investment to drive those conversations forward.
Voice can be such a big enabler to other things as well, and you start picking at that thread of replacing your just core, very basic telephony environment, and then that you start going, oh, so that means I can now do that, and I can integrate with that, and I can talk to that, and then you've got a massive Venn diagram of all these things that actually join together, and that's what's the one thing at the middle of that is your voice stack.
We touched on how important data is, and when we look at siloed technologies within that hotel environment, we've got information over here around PMS, we've got telephony information, we know what we're doing from a marketing perspective, we know what our emails are doing. Where within that journey do we gauge a real temperature of guest satisfaction? Yes, we can do kind of manual surveys, and we can do the things that we've always done as an industry, but actually voice is a huge enabler for understanding guest sentiment and guest satisfaction. We've got a platform called Conversation Intelligence, which sits over the voice channels. It ingests that information, it analyzes it, and it gives us a really clear picture of true guest sentiment. Yeah. And from a hotelier's standpoint, it enables us to prioritize. We can really quickly identify where the friction points are within that customer journey or that guest journey, and prioritize those as areas that we want to address. So that historically was not available. The advent of AI has enabled us to understand our guests better, which then understanding our guests better, understanding where their friction points are, the things they like about dealing with this as an organisation, the things they don't, enables us to kind of design out these solutions to be really, really guest focused.
And as we talked earlier, when we were talking about AI, we said hoteliers do not want to replace people because fundamentally hospitality is human-led, but then we are so keen on removing the phones and removing a vital channel of communication whilst we have the guest in-house.
Absolutely.
And that's something that I find myself arguing quite a lot today with my peers. But we're getting to the end of this. So, Ross, what conversation should hotels start having tomorrow morning?
First things first, I think understand your own property. Understand what you have. And if you're not able to understand what that is, quickest way, look at your phone bill. What's coming in on your phone bill every month? What are you being billed for? If there are things on there that you look at and you go, I've got no idea what that is, that's the time to speak to someone. That's the time to speak to someone, try and understand what those services are. More importantly, understand the impact of what happened if those services were switched off tomorrow. Because that's the real kind of, I suppose, compelling event here, is understand what I've got, what's the risk of the impact of that ceasing tomorrow, and then what do I need to do to get myself in a position where I can align with a partner, where I can start to design out everything we've been talking about today.
Paul, same question to you.
Yeah, I completely agree. Start with what you need to know what you've got. If you don't know what you've got, then you don't know where you're going to come from, and then engage with somebody. This isn't something that you can probably do alone with off-the-shelf stuff that you're just ordering from a website. This is, and for those people in sales are probably continually badgered about this for 15 years, but this actually is a proper consultative sale. This is a solution. This isn't a, oh yeah, I'll buy that, plug that in, buy that, plug that in. That you could do that, but you're actually not going to achieve anything. And then that's when you're going to begrudge having gone through this project. Find somebody to work with, partner with the right partner, like you guys at Focus. You've got the full tech stack to deliver a full wraparound service. And as I said, comms is at the very core of that, but it touches on so many other things, and it's making sure that who you choose to partner with can deliver those things.
Exactly that. I think, again, going back to the size and the scale question, we have specialists at every level. So we have the virtual CTO functionality, headed up by a fantastic guy called Eric and his team. If you are a larger organisation, we have that capability to slot in, understand your organisation, and help you build out that model. We also have a whole team of hospitality specialists led by Alessandra who can come and have that conversation. So we have the expertise to support you on that journey, and we have the, I suppose, provenance in good old-fashioned telephony to help you understand what you've already got. Yeah. And that's absolutely key in this scenario.
Would there be another extension to January?
I wouldn't bet my own money on it.
Yeah. Can't see it.
That's the
Can't
day.
see it. Yeah. It's gonna, there's no reason to. Whereas before I could go, oh yeah, well, there's this. I can't see those excuses now.
I said last question, but I got another one. Is hospitality the sector that is lasting longer?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say yes, probably in conjunction with similar environments. If you take schools and hospitals as examples,
Yeah.
I would say those kind of larger properties with more complex requirements, with lots of different functions within them, but hospitality probably tops the list.
Yeah, I agree. And I think probably something that we've actually potentially overlooked as well is there's probably a lot of hotels in listed buildings. That's probably hindered some of their development, because I can't go channeling new data cabling around everywhere. You know, again, that comes back to partnering with the right people. There are ways around that, very simple ways around that. But if you're not partnered with the right people, that can put people off. But yeah, I think sometimes the nature of just the physical property that you're in, and then coupled with budgetary restraints as well over the last probably few years. And I think you're right, hospitality, education, and medical care is probably the three sectors that are still using old technology. So the NHS was still faxing prescriptions only till 18 months ago. So
I'll ask you this question, which I should probably have asked earlier. You talk about buildings and listed building, but a modern system actually does not need the level of infrastructure that it was needed 15 years ago.
yeah.
So how does that cost compare to a hotel that 20, 25 years ago invested heavily on CapEx cost
Yep.
into a new, very siloed telephone system? What does that investment look like today?
I mean, physically, if you have still got your handsets in rooms, they can stay there even if they're analog. We can put one singular piece of kit in your server rack that can convert that from analog to digital, and that just sits then within your data network, which is obviously already there. Equally, you've probably heavily invested previously in having strong Wi-Fi networks, because that's probably the requirement for most of your guests, is having a data connection or Wi-Fi connection. So if you don't want the big bits of hardware in your IT infrastructure, replace those analog handsets with Wi-Fi DECT handsets, and the physical cost of those are not astronomical. You know, they're probably less than a week's worth of coffee.
I think it would be remiss of us not to talk about the commercial models in play and kind of how that's driven the technology that we've seen in the hospitality space over the last 10, 20, 30 years. Traditional legacy phone systems were bits of kit, physical kit that you installed in your server room, along with many, many handsets, depending on the size of your property. And they were either paid outright or they sat on a lease, or that was kind of the traditional model. Yep. The newer technologies that we're seeing in the marketplace are typically provided on a SaaS model, on a software as a service model, on an OpEx model, which has.
I think hospitality have always been wary of operational costs because of the seasonality of a lot of hotels. If you're outside of larger city centres, operational cost has always been slightly fearful, because I'm still paying for it in that October and February, March period where I don't have the same level of income. Where actually, if I can hit that capex expenditure at the end of September, when I've just had the Maybank holidays, June and July people going away, the Christmas, the summer holidays for the schools, and September, I've got a wedge load of cash at the end of September. Let me go and spend that all now. Whereas if I've actually got to still spend the same in those lull periods as I do those peak periods. Historically, I think hospitality has been an industry that's gone, I don't know about that.
But obviously, a SaaS model on a licensing charging module gives that flexibility to increase licenses in moment of peak time and reduce them when they're not needed.
Occupancy, the right partner can work with you, and we've historically done occupancy-based billing in that scenario. So we've had large hotels that have gone through a refurb, and they've closed a quarter of the hotel. Because it's licensing on the correct licensing model, we were able to close down those hotel rooms, and that operational cost was completely lost because they're not in use. And then when they had completed the refurb, we just turned them back on again.
And because they're no longer large capex module, so are the need for a return on that investment the same before we decide or we sign on the dotted line for that big type of upgrade?
I think you need to look at it from a cost over that technology's lifetime, and with kind of traditional technologies that used to be installed in hotels, what you bought to some extent is what you got, and it wouldn't really evolve for the next 5 to 10 to 20 years. Whereas the beauty of a SaaS model is that as and when that system evolves and there's new features and there are new capabilities within that, you benefit from them.
Yep.
Because you have that ongoing relationship, you have that ongoing model. Not only that, but actually from a cybersecurity standpoint, which is a hot topic across all industries at the moment, especially hospitality, it's very easy to benefit from the latest patches, upgrades, security regulations when you're on that SaaS model. It's more complex with the more legacy infrastructure.
It's not that one point in time purchase, is it? And
Exactly
that's what I said. When you're doing your due diligence, make sure you can partner with a partner that can take you on a journey, because new things will drop in continually. And like I say, it may be just a small, tiny little thing that enables your piece of hardware to do something else. It could be a feature that's been released in the actual core network. But if you've got a physical piece of tin and you're not having someone come in and change your voicemail tape over, back in the day, you're not going to get that enhanced features.
And dare I mention it again, but we are so early into the AI journey that a lot of what we're seeing at the moment is kind of overlays and add-ons and kind of disparate services that all offer their own benefits and ROI, but I would be very cautious about moving into a technology where there isn't a strong roadmap.
Yep.
So don't look at just what your capabilities are now, but actually try and, it's difficult, right? I'm not telling you to look into the future, but understand your guests, understand where that journey might need to go in the future, and make sure that you're really aligned with a partner that can deliver the right technologies or is forward-thinking enough to be able to bring those technologies in at the point that you require them.
Yep. The more they understand you, the more that they can, as I said, I've said it 3 or 4, probably 10 times now, and you're bored of hearing it, but have them map out what they can do for you. So if you're signing in a 5-year contract with your chosen vendor, know that month 60 doesn't look the same as month 1, and the right partner and the right vendor will tell you that from day dot. Like you said there, Ross, like you've got all your different departments that can come and build that solution out for you. Again, this is not a one-time buy and run away. This is a continual evolving product set.
Make a good point there. Stakeholders. Engage the right stakeholders at the right point. Yes, this new solution needs to work for your guest journey. This solution also needs to work for front of house and back of house and the spa team and the reservations team and anybody else that will be using these technologies on a daily basis. Get them involved in that process. Actually understand what their daily workflows look like and what would remove friction from those workflows before you make a final decision on technology. And bring them in at the start of the process. Don't bring them in at the end.
Yeah, there's not a department that won't be touched by this. From the chefs to the groundskeeping to cleaning to IT to receptionists to the board. Everybody in your property and in your working team will be touched by communication at some point. How can you make their life easier? How can you make it more streamlined? And how can you make it more collaborative? And like you say, engage the right people early doors.
Ross, you and I were at an event this week where people were talking about doing a lot more with a lot less. Yes, technology does the right technology when it's designed with a lot of inputs from the different stakeholders, can be designed in a way that actually does remove all the complexity that sits behind the desk for hoteliers and operator and the teams that work behind those departments to really streamline the guest journey.
Absolutely. And we heard from the hospitality economist, didn't we, at the beginning of that session. And it was really interesting to kind of understand the economic factors that are driving these decisions. And do more with less has been something that we've been talking about as an organisation for some time now. And that is driven by economic market conditions, the increases in national insurance, the national living wage, business rates going up. It creates pinch points. So the technology that we deploy, it needs to enable these teams to do more, be more productive, get better visibility of data, and deliver a more personalised service to the guests.
Well, and we came to an end of today's session. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Ross, for being here with us today. It's nice to have new voices into the room of hospitality. I'm Alessandra, Head of Hospitality for Focus on Hospitality, and today we discussed the PSTN cutoff due the beginning of January 2027. So don't miss out. Make sure you see what you got to understand whether it is affecting you or not. Don't be left last minute because the implication could be quite scary. Thank you to Vorbos and their hospitality in having us in their studio today. Thank you, Paul, and Evolve IP for being here today and talk through your experience and how you're supporting hospitality.
Thanks for having us, and glad to be a sponsor of Focus on Hospitality.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's it for this episode of Straight Talking by Focus on Hospitality.